What do we think, Mike, the Cowboys are going to do 12-20 here?
I think at minimum, even though there was discussion maybe to the contrary that it doesn't have to be this way, I think they have to keep a hold of both of their first-round picks. It doesn't necessarily have to be 12-20. They can massage that however they feel is necessary, whether that's jumping up to 9, whether that's moving back to 15, or moving from 20 to 27 because the draft board doesn't fall exactly how they want it to, whatever. But I think you need to walk out of today with 2 defensive pieces to accentuate your roster. I feel like that's a necessity for this day, and then whatever else comes of the weekend, deal with that starting tomorrow. Today has to you got to have 2 guys show up on Jerry's bus tomorrow. They're going to help your defense.
Here's a look at the draft board real quick, just so put it in perspective. 12-20. They don't have a second round pick as it currently stands. 1 in the 3rd round. Michelle, I know they talked a little bit about the day 2 picks and that the value of those. What did you take away from that part of the conversation?
Well, I think that based on their needs in this draft, they need some day 2 picks because I would argue that their biggest need right now is middle linebacker, and you can get some quality middle linebackers in that day 2, the rounds 2 and 3 picks. So, Stephen Jones talked a little bit about the value that they see there. I mean, he did flat out say, look, value of the NFL draft is exponentially higher in that first, and that's why there's so much work and thought and negotiating, really throughout the entire year to make sure that you have what you need from a first round perspective. But yeah, I think especially given, like, you think back to, I think it was 23 when they drafted DeMarvion Overshown. They got him in the 3rd round, and he's dealt with his own injury issues, but
solid player.
He's their best linebacker as it stands now. So I think they understand the quality and the value that you can get positionally on day 2. And so, yeah, the fact that they only have 1 pick as things stand today in those 2 rounds, I'd be interested to see if that changes over the next 24 hours.
Joe, that draft needs graphic probably could have been 2 pages long, but I tried to truncate it a little bit. What's your main takeaway heading into this draft?
Well, there's a few things. And first of all, I do think we need to hit one other thing from the draft press conference, because Bill Clinton's appearance did cloud over what I thought was one of the other fantastic moments. And that was before the presser even began.
Oh, my
Yes.
When Tad Carper, who's the PR chief, gave the great disclaimer that, what you hear may or may not be the truth. And I'm like, that might be the truest statement we heard all day.
Joe noticed that he basically opened it up, and Jerry was like, wait, Tad, isn't there something you want to tell the people? Tad was like, oh, yeah.
That's exactly right.
Let me go ahead and set the table.
And just the little gleam in Jerry's eye as Tad said it. He just kind of smirked at the camera like, yep, we're going to do this right now.
The
and
winks.
have some fun with it.
Yeah.
Terms and conditions apply.
Well, and it's not giving a care about actually saying it out loud. I appreciate that. I'm good with that. Thank you very much, because that's what I'm going to tell the people anyway, right? I mean, it's Lions season in the NFL, and that's why, you can't believe anything they say. You can't believe anything that any of these GMs say. And you guys, if you want to follow that down the rabbit hole, you also have to take everything that you read nowadays with a grain of salt, because a lot of these draft nicks, a lot of these draft experts, where are they getting it from, you guys? They're getting it from the GMs, and they're getting it from their contacts, right? Now, again, a lot of them are smart enough to filter through all of that stuff, but we, as journalists, and obviously you as fans and viewers, you got to do the same thing, right? So when I think about this draft for the Cowboys, I think it's I call it a bluebell draft. Like, think about ice cream flavors. Everybody's got a different flavor. Everybody's got something else that they want, something else that they like. You might be Rocky Road. You might be cookies and cream. I happen to be homemade vanilla, old school dude. That's worked forever, and it's going to continue.
I vote for Rocky Road.
Okay. See? Rocky
Joe,
Road.
you are so much more than vanilla, buddy, but continue.
No, and again, I don't need my ice cream to display who I am. Huh?
That's fair.
Huh?
That's fair.
So, right.
So
anyway, but my point being, they've got to follow those first 10 picks so closely, because they're going to be different values assigned to these players. Because I think after Mendoza, you have this window of 8 or 9 players that there's not a huge amount of separation. Maybe Arvell Reese, right? And then if Reese goes, then do you have, another edge like David Bailey go, because these teams are drafting a little bit more for need, because this might not be the most depth this draft might be doesn't have a ton of depth. So will teams reach more for need? So man, those first 7, 8 picks, the Cowboys have to be all over, and I think they have to be willing and ready to do anything, and that does include moving up. And Mike, you made a good point. I do think they need 2 players out of what happens early in this draft, but I also think that there's another tier of players that are probably between, the 20th overall pick and the 55th overall pick. So I would amend it to say this. They need to get 1 player early, but if that second player happens to be something that you trade back to get early in the second round, and you still are convinced you can get that linebacker or that person, that guy, I would be okay with that too. I would.
Okay.
I would. So I'm looking at, I think the whole CeeDee Lamb thing was an absolute smokescreen from the Cowboys, so that when they call other teams, they could say, "Hey, we took CeeDee Lamb. But Jordan Tyson, he's right there. We might take him. So listen, y'all need to, sweeten the pot if we're going to move up and take that pick. You can move back, and Tyson's still going to be on the board." So all calculated, completely calculated by the Cowboys. So I think it's going to be a wild draft. That's the other thing. One point of order that we all need to think about: 6 different teams have multiple first round picks. 6 different teams. So that's a ton of draft capital to make a ton of moves. I was reading Joe Hoyt in the morning news saying that he would probably put first round trades the over under at 3.5. So let's workshop that. I'll say I think it might be over 3.5. What do y'all think?
That sounds that's interesting, because if we're talking about everyone's on the same general barrel of quality player, no holds barred, because it's talking about individual preferences at that point, and the value that people are going to place on, I want that guy specifically versus the position lead.
Yeah, it's going to be a wild first round. If there are 4 first round trades, though, that's extremely. I mean, but to Joe's point, and to both Joe's point, Hoyt and Trahan, there is so much draft capital here to play with that it does lend itself to that possibility, and the Cowboys are certainly potentially in that mix to make a move like that. The lack of a second round pick makes it harder for them to move up. Certainly move up a lot. Could you move up to 9? Maybe. I don't think you're moving up to 3 or to 6. But it's certainly plausible for them to make a move.